Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the AnyVoices podcast. My guest today is Donna Frank, DonnaFrankVoiceTalent.com. If you want to check out her stuff, and you do. And I just want to put a little asterisk, full disclosure, Donna and I actually met through a connection from a company that we work for, Hall Communications. So without further ado, Donna, welcome to the AnyVoices podcast.
Hey, Mel. Yeah, we work, Hall Communications is my longest running client ever. I've worked for them forever as the voice of the buzz. The buzz.
Yeah. 99.9 The Buzz, definitely a great radio station. You should stream it today. But I think it's pretty cool. You and I were emailing, back and forth about kind of, what you might want to talk about. And you've got some pretty cool hobbies. Restoring old houses. I flipped an old house. It's a lot of work. It's dusty. But what made you fall in love with kind of restoring old houses?
I've owned a lot of old houses.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of just like taking something that was beautiful and restoring it. A lot of these, like, we have a big old Victorian right now. A lot of these places over the years have been like divided up into rentals, and they lost continuity throughout everything. So I really like, I like bringing beauty to things.
Right.
I also, when I was a little kid, my family's house burned down, and I've always had this romance about houses and homes and stuff like that. Always searching for something. I don't know, but it stayed with me, and I love houses.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the interesting things about us, voice talents, I think that you've been doing this from your own space for a while, and I know I have, is that you kind of have to do some DIY, and you have to, make some changes in a house to be able to have a proper recording space. I think it starts there. And yeah, we remodeled my house that I grew up in when I was a kid too. And so, when it came time to flip a house, because I was like, hey, this is a great way to improve my living space and potentially my future life. I didn't hesitate at all, and it was cool to make this space that was dusty and dreary and poorly lit and make it a place that I actually wanted to be in. It's pretty cool.
So, yeah, you get to like make your office look the way I should have actually done this from the studio. That would have been smart, huh? But here I am.
I'm sure you spend a lot of time in there, so it's nice. It's nice to always not be. My studio's behind me, and so I set up stuff here at my the desk where I just kind of peruse the computer, do a lot of my editing from, and this is like my comfier spot now. So I like where I'm at. So I have to ask, do you put a lot of Halloween decor? You were saying that Halloween is like your favorite holiday.
I used to say and think that we did it for the kids of the neighborhood and for our neighbors and everything. But really, I think our neighbors, I can't tell if they hate it or not, We love it. We pick a theme every year, and we go all out. It's something that my husband and I work together on, and we just really like Halloween. And I think we embarrass our kids more than anything else. But it's fun, it's like the one holiday where we had the whole candy shoot and everything. Halloween this year, because of COVID, we had, to take all these different steps with tables and all this other stuff. But the whole neighborhood gets together, and, I love when the kids come over and seeing their costumes, and it brings out the little kid kind of in all of us, right?
Yeah, I think Halloween's a great, I have a friend who goes over the top every year, and I always have to stop and see. And this past year, he had some skeletons that fell apart. So he took all the bones and he built basically a whole gateway on his porch. So the top of the porch and then the beams of the porch, he put all the bones onto that. And then he got
so stealing that idea.
Yeah, and then he got these eyes. They're called like predator eyes, and he hid them in his bushes. So so you'd have like these red lights that kind of softly glow on and then stay on for a little bit, and then they turn off. And it's the coolest thing. I always have to go there and get some inspiration. And I always come home and I go, I am not doing Halloween right. So I have a feeling you're one of those people where I just go, like that bar is so high. So when you're also not in the studio, it sounds like, in addition to remodeling, Halloween. You do a lot of cooking. So you're telling me
I
that
do
you've got a
cook
lot
a
of different,
lot. Um,
appetites.
I've changed a lot, as a lot of people have over the years, where I grew up eating meat and everything, but then I
Mhm.
turned vegan for a while. The vegan thing got really hard, like going out to dinner or just, always trying to come up with a protein. So I'm more of a pescatarian now. So I'm a pescatarian.
Mhm.
My daughter is still vegan, so I
Okay.
do cook for her. I have a son with celiac disease, so I can't have any gluten in the
Oh
house.
yeah, none.
And then we have two people with diabetes. I mean, everybody's healthy and good, but I feel like I could almost be a nurse at this point or a dietitian. I know so much about food because I have to, like for medical reasons. So
Right.
I do a lot of cooking. My Sundays are usually planning out for the week and cooking and storing and stuff like that. And everything has to be written out, and that's my Sunday. I cook for the week and organize and stuff.
Yeah.
But luckily, I
It's
like being in the kitchen, so that's good.
nice. I don't know. I don't know when this happened, but Friday nights for me are my favorite night for shopping because nobody else is in the store and it's so well stocked for the weekend. And then I cook everything,
Mhm.
on Sunday on a good week. Not always, possible, but yeah, I love Sundays for cooking. And and my kids get in on it too. Like the 7-year-old will shred the cheese and little jobs that she can do. And my tween, almost a teen now, is almost cooking as much as I am nowadays, which is kind of crazy. But um, so that's really cool. So you're an unregistered dietitian, just as your
If all my
realistic
clients go
qualifications.
away, I'm just going to go into that field, I think.
There you go. Just write cookbooks, and you can voice them yourself. You can do the audio version. Um, so that brings us, to a good point. Like, how did you kind of get started in audio? I have a feeling that it was radio for you, like it was for me. But kind of, what was that journey like for you?
Well, it's so weird because so many people say, like, when you get scripts now, like, we don't want a radio voice, nothing
Right.
announcer. You know what I mean? No, absolutely not. So many people I know on radio, they ended up in voiceover. I
Hmm.
was doing the morning show for EQX, which is the greatest alternative rock station of all time.
Amazing.
And I was just on air, and somebody called one day and said, it was actually the Albany Symphony Orchestra. And they said, will you come voice an ad for us? And I didn't even know voiceover was like a thing.
Yep.
And I went and I made like $125. This was like whatever, 15 years, 20 years ago. And to me, that was like the most amount of money in such a short amount of time. I was like, this is friggin' awesome,
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, this is what, so I ended up, once I left the morning show because I was having a baby, and I had the baby and I just put a studio in the house, which is really, I didn't know anybody else at that point that was doing it. Like for a long time, I was I had no contemporaries. I had nobody to talk to about it.
Hmm.
Nobody, I had the little Pro Tools M box, which had 4 buttons.
Yep.
And I didn't have any education either. Like I'd learned Pro Tools at EQX, but from like other people, not from like, a system or an
Yeah,
engineer
there
or
was
something
no
like
pro to
that.
teach you. You had to become one. Yeah.
Yeah, so even to this day, I can get through. Like I use Adobe now, but I can do things, but I'm like, hey, that little scrubby thing that makes this happen? Like, I don't really know what anything is called. I know how to do it though.
Right.
So I kind of got into voiceover basically from being on the radio. And once I built the studio in my first house, the clients just sort of came in. But this is, again, I was sort of this little island where like something would break and I'd be like, well, that's the end of that job forever. You know what I mean? But you sort of muddle through it,
Yeah.
One of the things I love now about the internet, I've made so many friends and met so many, and women in particular, other voiceovers who do exactly what I do all day. And it's such a relief. It's so nice.
Yeah,
You
it's nice
know,
having somebody to talk to and bounce ideas off and be like, yeah, no, you're not crazy. Like, that's not how this is supposed to happen.
Yeah, or like I see like one of my friends get a job and post it on Facebook, and I'm like, yay! I know how hard you worked for that. I know that for every job we get, we didn't get 100. You know,
Right.
that's another part of the job. I audition, so I a couple hours every day, I'd say.
Hmm.
Um, so there's a lot of rejection that goes along with voice work that you have to get used to,
Yeah.
which I never did because I'm super insecure and rejection still cuts me to the core. I never developed that shell. Have
Hmm.
you? No?
Um,
Or
you
do
know,
you
I,
never
I,
get rejected?
I definitely get rejected. I actually, I had a period of time where I wasn't getting anything from a lot of my auditions, and I was actually really, really down in the dumps. And a lot of it was through a site that I was working with. They go into the site, your auditions for the day would be there. Not exactly a pay to play, but there was some, exchange of funds. But and I didn't know the section existed where it was for people to give feedback. And I started looking through the feedback, and it was basically all of these producers, all of these audio engineers being like, "You nailed it. This was great. I don't know why the client didn't pick you. They went a different direction. The project was canceled, but we loved your voice." And it was like all of a sudden, it was like I was on cloud nine, and I realized it was like, you know what? I was still doing these auditions. I was still having a good time. I felt like I was learning. And so, I benefited a lot from that. But over the years, I guess I've just stopped kind of hearing back from people, and so when I send an audition out, I just kind of do my best and I send it along its way. And I kind of just be like, either I find out that I got the job and I'm super happy, or I ignore it. And so I kind of keep track of the auditions that I've done, just make sure that, somebody's not sneaking it into some project. I
Mhm.
have a day where I won't have a lot to do and I do some research. But yeah, I mean, I feel like um, I kind of developed a little bit of a thick skin, but I feel like a lot of that was developed in radio. Funny enough, not in voiceover. um like you, I never thought voiceover was a career. It was one of those things I thought that was just done in Hollywood, until it was somebody that I'd worked with on a production, called me up and said, "Hey, we'll give you $20 to do this." And this was 25 years ago, really. And and I was like, "Hey, $25 for, going to visit a friend, count me in." And very, very soon I was charging a lot more than that. And and it's been awesome. And like you, in 2006, I first set up a home studio because I had a client who needed stuff, quick turnaround, needed a lot of stuff done, and they gave me partial money up front. So I went out and I bought equipment to set up a studio. And I literally, the only other people I knew who had studios were professional recording studio people, or musicians who wanted to jam in their basement and and try to record some of that. So there was literally, it was like nobody was using any of the same tools. I was using Cool Edit back then, before it was
Mhm.
even Adobe Audition. um so yeah, kind of like you, I was like, I just muddled through and I figured it out. Um and it was kind of neat, to be, I felt like a trailblazer, here in the
Mhm.
Northeast, being, doing this thing that I knew nobody else was doing. And loving it.
Too bad we didn't know each other back then.
Yeah, right. And we could have been doing tech support. Well, obviously, I know I bought, the wrong interfaces. I bought the wrong cables. I probably bought a couple of wrong mics. What are some things that, kind of like, if you started over knowing what you know now, would you have done
Um,
anything differently?
yeah. I I would always update the computer when it said to, and
Mm,
then nothing else would work. So my advice, and I do this now, is to just wait until you absolutely have to update. It used to happen more with Pro Tools. Um,
yeah.
I've only been using Adobe for Audition for like a year here. So I have to wait and see. I haven't had but like I would update, and I'd have to buy a whole new computer or whatever, the whole system. So I would wait to update on things. My advice too is I had started with a really good mic.
Hmm.
I put all my money into the microphone, and then we'd be running off like a little Mac or something. Because once the soup is made, you can't really fix it. So once the voice goes in it, you can do things to it, but
Yeah.
I wanted my voice to sound as good as possible. And I don't have a really loud voice, so I needed a really good, sensitive mic to pick it up. So those are my two things. I believe the money should go into the mic. and don't update unless, don't update because you feel like it, because the little
Right.
thing is bugging you. Just wait.
Yeah, I've actually got myself a setup where I have, multiple computers. As a matter of fact, I have a wicked old white MacBook that has Pro Tools 9 on it. And, that's my, backup of backups. Um,
Mhm.
and anytime I update or upgrade, I'm always kind of like getting, you know, my new system ready while I'm still using the old system. And then I just kind of shift aside the old system while I put the new one in so that anytime I can flip back, to my old one. Because yeah, that's totally bitten me where I've literally had to call up a friend and be like, hey, I need to rent your studio tomorrow because I have this job and my equipment is not working. And that's a horrible position to be in, to be like, I'm now losing money on this project, but it's a great client and, you know, they're worth hanging on to. It's worth me doing, but for my own stupid mistakes. And so,
Yeah, and I
yeah.
do tend to do any changes on the weekend so
Hmm.
that I'm not, because what's more stressful than being in the middle of the workday and having something completely not work? You got to take a ride or whatever to go get the piece you need, or so I tend to do all that stuff. I don't touch a thing during the week.
Yep. Yep, I definitely agree that is a good way to go. For me, Monday is kind of like I plan, just like with my, with Sundays and doing meals and things like that. Monday's the day that I kind of plan out what I'm going to be doing for the rest of the week, and that's never upgrades. It's
Right.
no, it's never upgrades. It's like, who have I not talked to in a little while? Who do I need to catch up with? And then Thursday,
I wish I could plan like that. Like my voiceover day is so different than that. Like I
yeah,
have my studios open or whatever from 9 to 5 for the most part, but then I've got people on the West Coast, and almost all my work comes like, here you go, we need it. Here you go, we need it. It's all on demand.
yeah,
Um, and some of them, some of my, that's the way it has to be, because if Taylor Swift drops an album at midnight, I got to be there. If one of my news stations has a big news story, I got to be there or whatever. So I
right,
just leave, my days are just open to clients. And I find myself, if there's a quiet hour in the morning on Monday at 10, I make the dinner salad or whatever, you know what I mean? I'm doing all the other stuff and jamming it in.
yeah.
But no, it would be nice to have, to be able to plan it.
Yeah, I think one of the ways that I've been able to do that is I work with a lot of corporate clients. So, I do radio and I do imaging and things like that. But, and so those kind of hours, I typically have gotten into a rhythm with those clients of when they often need me. And so I kind of pre-schedule that time, for those folks. But with my corporate clients, the nice thing is that they're like, hey, can you turn this around in 48 hours? And I'm like, yeah, you know, 48, 72 hours, that's like a lifetime.
Yeah,
I can
really.
do
I
that
know
with
when
them.
somebody's like, I don't need this till tomorrow, I'm like, I love you so much for saying that.
Yeah. Coming from a radio background where you're like, okay, I got 2.5 minutes to go to the bathroom, get some coffee and grab a snack from the break room on the way back to the studio. And you're like,
Mhm.
I could do that. No problem. So yeah, 48 hours, 72 hours. It's, it's like a lifetime. Um, let's see. So we talked about how you got started. You were basically the person who was doing it yourself. Was there anybody that you did run into eventually, gave you some really either good advice or some bad advice that you want to share? Or, do you have some other advice to give other than the update on weekends and not when you need to?
Um, you know, I don't really have much in the way of advice. I know at the beginning when I started, I did not have range. I
Hmm.
did not have a lot of range at all. And, I felt that there was probably some constructive criticism given to me, like you can't just be this one trick pony. Um, but I felt, because of an insecurity or whatever, like I have this one thing that I can do good, and I'm
Hmm.
just going to do that for everybody. But that doesn't get you a full-time gig. You know what I mean? That you can only do that a little bit. So work on range. It's a developed skill.
Hmm.
It's taken me years and years and years, to be able to do the different voices that I do. I'm doing this very sexy Howard Stern, mermaid, a beautiful goddess voice or whatever, like,
Right.
and all that. But then I'm doing like voices for KNX in LA, where it's like, if you don't listen to this station, you're gonna die. Like, you know what I
Right,
mean?
right. Yeah, like serious stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I'm doing everything in between, the party girl and all that other stuff. But that sort of, I didn't know how to do that coming out of the box. So, you know, be open to constructive criticism and work on range.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
it's
know,
interesting, like for an audition, there'll sometimes be the production notes. And I've been everything from the van driving dad to, the screaming, Sunday, Sunday, Sunday kind of announcer to an energetic, like 32-year-old guy, like, it's like,
mhm.
and yeah, it's funny. Bad advice though I was given, because when I started in this industry, my voice was pretty flat. Again, it was, like you, I didn't have the ability to go up and down and, do the whisper cell or the hard sell. It was kind of somewhere in the middle of all of that. Bad advice though, they told me drink bourbon and smoke, and you need to
Ah,
round out your voice a little bit. Actual advice I was given, that gives you an idea of how long ago I started in radio. Uh, but but thankfully I did not really listen to all of that advice, which is good. So um I guess, how are you seeing people out there who, who are following in your footsteps, other people who kind of are on this path? What I mean, I guess, what are some ways that people could expand that range? What are some ways that,
to
people
work
could
on
work on
range.
that?
Um, Hang on, my earring just exploded or popped. There, it's okay now. To work on range, I guess when I first started to do it, you do have to get sort of out of your head and
Hmm.
lose embarrassment. If you're going to be shy or embarrassed about doing it in front of someone, forget it. You just have to take that feeling of like this, I feel stupid, and put it over there, and then get into this new place that you're going to be, right?
Hmm.
Sometimes I think about what my new person or voice might look like, like for my Howard voice, it looks a lot like a mermaid.
Right.
Sounds crazy, but it's worked since 2013 for me. For some of my other, like when I brought up KNX, like I'll think about like Megan Kelly, you know
Hmm.
what I mean? Or whatever. Or sometimes for like, like a party girl voice, I'll think of like a Drew Barrymore or an Annie, you know what I mean? So getting like an image in your head, like what would this person sound like?
Yeah.
It kind of pulls you down that path. And then when I do find a voice, and I feel like I give all my different stations different voices
Hmm.
because they deserve that. I don't want to do the same thing,
Right.
for two people. So I'll have a recording of myself and I'll be like, okay, I need to go back and listen to her.
Hmm.
And, that's my voice for Chum 1045 or whatever it is. If in case I get lost in my head, you know what I mean? It's hard during the day, sometimes switching between very different voices. You know what I mean?
Oh gosh,
Um,
yeah. I remember at one point I was doing a boat. Sorry, I was doing imaging for a station that had a very kind of like boaty, kind of cruisy vibe to it, and then I was doing this country station, Thunder Country, out in, and they wanted me to put a fake accent on and things like that, and it was like, one day I'm like I've got this one, I've got this one, and I've got like this kind of like hippie station that was the first one that started playing Dead on the radio and Fish songs on the radio here in Vermont, and I'm like, it's so weird, like that I'm doing boom boom boom, but yeah, I did the same thing where I would always keep kind of like, here are my different voices, go in, do that, copy it, play it again, copy it, okay, now I'm ready to record. um
oh,
Gotta
and
get
that
yourself in that
brings me
headspace.
to one, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to try.
Oh,
But one more piece of really good advice that I do have that I wish somebody had told me is whenever you win an audition, make a folder on your computer that says winning auditions. So when you feel bummed out
mm-hmm.
or looking for your inspiration or whatever, you can go look into that folder and listen to be like, well, what did I do in that fight that they
Right.
liked? Why did I win that one? You know what I mean? Um, so I've started that a couple years ago, and I'm like, oh, I wish I'd started off with a folder of, the things that I really earned through the
Yeah.
audition process.
No, that's nice. Yeah, I think a friend of mine told me called it a gold file, a long time ago. Like those things that you really love or that clients really loved, like those are gold. Like that's your stuff to hold on to. And but winning gold, whatever you want to call it, it's good to have those positive moments because we are, I think, as creatives, right? Like uh, we have the ability to imagine that person we're talking to in our head or that person that we're pretending to be in our head, and that can take you sometimes to some unexpected places, sometimes unexpected really good, and then sometimes unexpected a little bit dark. And it's really good to have those kind of things to pull you back into why you love this. What is it that what is it that gives you that great feeling, and yeah, put that all in a place and remember that. And that's what you're working for, right? Like the money is awesome, but I don't know. Like I love what I do. It's the
Mhm.
money is just the great benefit to the fact that I'm able to make a living at what I love. So
Yep, I agree.
nice. Well, Donna, it's been really cool getting to know you. Donna Frank, voicetalent.com, again, is your website. So we'll put that in the show notes. And I think I am very respectful of your time. I I'm sure you have stuff that you've got to do. I know I have a couple of things waiting in my studio for me to do. So I definitely thank you so much for joining us today and sharing with us, some of your input and background.
Thank you so much. It was really great to meet you, and I'm very flattered that you asked me to be on. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, we can double team some client in the future, and just bam, just hit them with the guy and the girl voices, and
There you go.
all right. Well, until next time, thanks for joining us here on the Any Voices podcast, and we'll do one more take.